Welcome to Brad Kyle's Brad's Motorworks podcast, where we'll be talking about some things about BMW, some things of cars in general, and some things about car repair. I hope you find it educational, enlightening, and I hope it increases your understanding of your car. And maybe along the way we'll have some fun too. Thank you for listening, and here we go. Episode number 83, Fuel Vapor Recovery Systems. This one I'm going to go through. There's basically two different types of fuel vapor recovery systems. One is in the vehicle itself, and the other one is actually part of the equipment that the gas fuel filling station has as their equipment that's EPA mandated. So there are two different systems that are going in operation at this time. So here we go. Before cars had emission controls, gasoline evaporating from the fuel system generated almost as much hydrocarbons as the engine did while running. Hydrocarbons meaning raw fuel. Okay. Completely sealing the tank would only make matters worse since pressure would build up from heat. Also, the tank must be vented to allow air to get into the tank when the fuel level drops while the car is being driven. This is not an easy system to design. It has to be open at both ends at least once during the drive cycle. Also open every time the tank is filled. Testing the evaporative system is the most difficult part of an OBD drive cycle test. On OBD meaning onboard diagnostics. In other words, this is the test that the car does as you're driving the car. And when we're talking about OBD2, which was in cars from 1995 or 1996 and later, again, that's actually the hardest test for the car to actually perform and or pass. And it's the one that's most prevalent that comes up when your car is being smogged, if you're going through that process because of the state you live in, that test, it's called a monitor test, and it's the hardest one to get to even run, let alone pass. Okay, so it's, controlling fuel vapor is certainly a very important thing, but again, it's a very hard test for the system to run and pass. So, again, there's two types of vapor recovery systems. One is called ORVR, or Onboard Refueling Vapor Recovery System, and the other one is what's called Stage 2, which is part of the actual fuel station equipment themselves, itself. ORVR was EPA mandated for the 1998 model year. However, many manufacturers had it in place before that. According to EPA, ORVR systems are about 98% efficient, whereas Stage 2 is 62% to 92% efficient. Okay. The components of the system in the car are the carbon canister, which stores the fuel vapor, a fuel tank filler pipe and seal, a purge valve, which controls the flow of the fuel vapor to the engine, intake valves, vent purge vapor lines, anti-spitback valve, which is located in the fuel filler pipe. Of course, the fuel tank itself, which holds the liquid fuel, and also, it holds the liquid fuel, vent and rollover valve, which controls the venting of vapor during refueling, and stages release of fuel or vapors if vehicle rolls over. On some OBD2 cars, it could take several weeks to several months to complete the two fuel evap leak test procedures. It depends on driving conditions and the drive cycle. California allows evap monitor tests to have not completed, but will still allow a pass of the smog test. However, it's up to the smog test center to actually pass the car. Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, this is going to be a real short one. Apparently, fuel vapor recovery system is just that. It's designed to that we don't want fuel vapor, which is hydrocarbons, which is basically your fuel that you've paid for, becoming a vapor. And if it's not controlled properly, it's going to just go out into the atmosphere, which is not good. So that's part of your gasoline you've paid for becoming vaporized and going out into the atmosphere. So the fuel vapor recovery system is controlling that from happening to where, yes, there's always going to be fuel vapor generated within the fuel system in a car. Okay, the idea being is to control that vapor, store it in the car, which in this case happens in the charcoal canister, and then at the proper time during the operation of the car and the engine is running, those stored fuel vapors are then through this purge valve are then fed into the engine and burned as they should be, and there you have it. Okay, you're not losing any fuel vapor. You're helping the environment. You're not losing any of your fuel that you've paid for that has vaporized because of heat and so on and so forth, and everybody's happy. Okay, the issue is that the system on an OBD2 test, it can actually find a leak. When I say find, excuse me, it can say there is a leak somewhere in the car in the fuel vapor system. Okay, that's as small as if you were to take a ballpoint pen and just put it onto a piece of paper and make a dot that you can see. The system's capable of seeing that small of a leak. Okay, now you can imagine the fun part as a technician, as a repair technician. That leak is somewhere in the car. Go find it. Okay, so it can be quite the process. Okay, luckily. If you have certainly a shop that has a better advanced scan tool, they can, through the scan tool, the diagnostic tool they plug into the onboard diagnostics, not only can they read fault codes, but they can force the car to do a fuel evap leak test. Okay, if it had failed in the past and then it passes when they're doing this forced fuel vapor recovery test on the car, a lot of times the most common thing that's wrong if there is a leak is either the fuel cap is not on tight and correctly, or it's because of where it's getting to where it's leaking a little bit. So the most common issue of why does a car fail a fuel evap emission test as far as the car is concerned is the most common thing is somebody just hasn't put the cap on tight enough. Okay, this is why some cars will actually have a light come on in the dashboard that says like check filter cap. Okay. Or there's typically in the fuel filler area, like where the fuel door is, or the fuel filter cap, or the fuel filler cap itself, it'll say that, if you don't put this on tight, it will turn on your service engine soon light, which it will. Okay. Beyond that, there's, if the light is on, the service engine soon light on, and you can certainly check your fuel filler cap and realize if you do find out that, oh gosh, the last time I filled it up I didn't put it on tight, and you tighten it, it can take several days, if not maybe even more than that, of driving for that light to go off by itself if what you just did by tightening the cap actually fixed the leak. Okay, so it can take several days of driving for that light to go off by itself. But if that was the problem, okay, that light will go off. Okay, but again, it depends on how you drive the car, how far you go on a typical drive cycle, so on and so forth. It's going to take at least 2 days typically, because part of the drive cycle is the car has to be started from a dead cold engine. Okay, and you necessarily driving it to work and letting it sit for 8 hours is not necessarily dead cold. Okay, it usually is more of an overnight type thing. So anyway, that's kind of the fuel vapor recovery system in a nutshell. It's it's a great system. They're generally pretty reliable. They certainly help to reduce total emissions from the car. They are, as far as in the U.S., they are EPA mandated to be working properly from 1996 and later. Okay, it is part of the OBD2 test procedures that the car puts itself through pretty much daily. Okay, so important system, relatively trouble-free to a point. But if there is a leak in the system, it can be real fun for the technician to find it. One of the things we can use or sometimes we'll use is either a smoke machine, or sometimes guys will use, that's the most common thing really, is a smoke machine, or sometimes they'll use nitrogen. Okay, but smoke machine is one thing that you just feed smoke into the system and hopefully you find it coming out somewhere. Okay, and you figure out where the leak is and fix it. So that's that. Hope this has been informative for you. I appreciate you listening. As usual, if you want to get a hold of me via email, it's bkpodcasts5@gmail.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Brad's Motorworks. And, again, I do have a repair shop in Southern California. I work only on BMWs, but I talk more about more about cars than just BMWs. But in any case, appreciate your time, appreciate you listening, and I hope you have a fantastic day, a great tomorrow, and let's look after each other. Currently, this podcast is being done in July of 2020. We all know what's going on around the world, and let's look after one another and care about one another, and we'll have a better place to live. If we love one another and look after each other, we'll all be better off. So, appreciate your time. I hope you have a fantastic day, and thank you again for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode. It's been an honor and a privilege to spend time with you. I hope you found this of value. Please share it with family and friends. Above all else, with all you're getting, get understanding. May God bless you and keep you, and thank you again.